Lago. We have called his spokesperson and not received any answers, so we don't know whether he was simply taking mementos with him when he left the White House or if he had another reason for taking 15 boxes worth of what are presidential records.
The chairman of the January 6th committee says if Trump willfully violated the Presidential Records Act, the committee will make a criminal referral to the Justice Department.
A major merger could be taking flight in the airline industry. Frontier Airlines wants to buy Spirit Airlines for nearly $3 billion. The deal, which must be approved by regulators, would create the nation's fifth largest carrier. The companies say it would benefit travelers by pressuring larger airlines to lower their fares. After the announcement, Frontier suffered a major meltdown Monday, canceling a quarter of its flights, blaming technical issues.
Time now for a look at your Tuesday weather. Warming temperatures means lots of ice flying off cars because of scenes like this. AAA is reminding drivers to remove that ice before hitting the road. But nothing is melting in Alaska. The wind chill at Howard Pass was negative 91 yesterday. Meanwhile, Southern California, the site of this weekend's Super Bowl, is preparing for temperatures around 90 in the coming days. The heat could stick around for Sunday's game. Checking today's high temperatures, near 50 from Montana to Colorado, 40s for much of the Northeast. Coming up, why a British pub that's been in business for more than 1,000 years is closing its doors for good.
But first, why American shoppers are still hoarding like they did at the beginning of the pandemic.
And up next, we take you to Beijing for the breaking headlines overnight from the Winter Games, including a new world record for Team USA.
A good Tuesday morning to all of you streaming with us. America This Morning will be right back, but first, here's today's two extra minutes of news just for you that we couldn't squeeze into the show. We begin with that shocking headline about overdoses in America. The drug overdose epidemic in the United States costing the nation roughly $1 trillion a year. According to a new bipartisan congressional report released on Tuesday, that cost rising with more overdose deaths now primarily driven by synthetic opioids like the ultra-deadly fentanyl. And turning now to the tragedy on a Florida drawbridge under investigation this morning. A woman was killed Sunday when she fell from the West Palm Beach Bridge as it opened. Police say the woman was walking her bike across the bridge connecting Palm Beach to the Florida mainland when it started to move before she could reach the other side. A bystander tried to save her, but she tumbled about 5 stories onto a concrete landing. Police still don't know who she is, and authorities are trying to figure out why the bridge opened. Turning now to some black girl magic on Wall Street this morning. Members of the new global organization Black Women on Boards, working to get more black women on boards of directors, are ringing the opening bell at NASDAQ to celebrate Patricia Roberts Harris, the first black woman to serve on the board of directors in 1971 at IBM. And finally, Taylor Swift once said, "We can leave the Christmas lights up till January, but what about February?" Check out this dazzling light show set to Love Story, Taylor's version, of course. Michigan family has jump-started their Valentine's Day celebrations by projecting a love-themed light show under their home in Garden City, Michigan, set to the tune of Taylor's hit song. Love that. What a great date idea. Go look at the light show. All right, that's today's Two More. I'm Will Gans. Thanks for streaming with us. More America This Morning coming right up.
The hoarding that was so prevalent at the start of the pandemic still appears to be a thing. Experts say Americans are still buying bulk due to supply chain concerns and inflation. Sales at Costco, Sam's Club, and BJ's jumped 26% in recent months. One executive says consumers are making sure they're not caught short again.
A British pub that has been open for more than 1,200 years is shutting down. The owner north of London blames 2 years of COVID restrictions. A new owner is hoping to reopen the bar one day. It first opened in the year 793. Incredible. Let's turn now to Beijing, where COVID is having a major impact on Team USA.
But overnight, some good news, including a new world record. ABC's Alex Brochet has all the overnight headlines from Beijing. Alex?
Hey, Mona and Rhiannon, welcome to Beijing. It's day 4 of the 2022 Winter Olympics, and it began with high hopes for Team USA in ice skating. 3-time world champion Nathan Chen taking the ice in the men's individual short program. Chen with a masterful performance, notching the highest score in short program history, 113.97. But for his skating teammate Vincent Zhao, heartbreak. Zhao testing positive for COVID. With tears in his eyes, he announced on Instagram he'd have to withdraw from competition.
The enormity of the situation, the pain of it all is pretty insane. I've already lost count of the number of times I've cried today.
Another USA medal, Ryan Cochran-Siegel winning silver in the men's Super G. And also this morning, an update on Nina O'Brien, the skier taking a scary fall during the giant slalom just before finishing her second run. We're now learning she suffered a compound fracture to her left leg, and she's headed back stateside for care. O'Brien writing on social media, "I'm a little heartbroken, but also feeling so much love." For Team China, it was a big day in the women's big air competition. Eileen Gu, the skier/fashion model, born in California and now competing for China, placing first. She's a fan favorite here in Beijing. But for Team USA, still a lot to look forward to, including women's bobsled favorite, Alana Myers-Taylor. She tested positive for COVID when she arrived here. She's now officially out of isolation and will be ready to compete in her first event, the monobob, on the 13th. Mona and Rhiannon.
Alex, thank you. And one more note about Ryan Cochran-Siegel, who won the silver in the men's Super G. His mother won gold at the 1972 Olympics in the slalom. So excellence obviously runs in that family.
It sure does.
Very cool.
Well, coming up, new details about Tom Brady's future plans.
Already? Also ahead, the stunning new technology that is helping paraplegic patients stand and, yes, walk again.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new Hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
She fulfilled his every fantasy.
Because she played these games, my son died.
Was dubbed the first internet murder. Now Friday, a murder plot hatched in a chat room. Sex, the internet, murder.
Truly astounding.
And now she wants to come clean to 2020.
It was like a video game, and each man was another level.
That's a special kind of evil. All new 2020 premieres Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
The hottest views in daytime are happening right here.
We talk about things on this show that people don't talk about.
That I can't wait to see.
Honest takes from strong women.
We need all hands on deck, and we need it right now. This is the time to speak out.
Unafraid to get real.
We stick by our points of view.
We're all seeing it differently, and that's the beauty of The View.
And that's why the most watched #1 daytime talk show is The View. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
Back now with Tom Brady, already talking about a possible comeback. The NFL's GOAT announced his retirement last week, but late yesterday during a podcast interview, he left himself a little wiggle room when he was asked about his future in football.
I'm just going to take things as they come. I think that's the best way to put it. I don't think anything never, you never say never. I'm definitely not looking to do that. But in the same time, I think you have to be realistic that you never know what challenges there are going to be in life. And I love playing. I'm looking forward to doing things other than playing.
He seems a little conflicted. Brady says he feels very good, though, about his retirement, but he doesn't know how he'll feel in 6 months. An explosive new statement from the lawyers representing former Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores. He is suing the NFL for racial discrimination. His lawyers say the only reason Flores was not hired as the head coach of the Houston Texans is because of his ongoing lawsuit. The Texans Monday announcing they are hiring Lovie Smith, who served as the team's defensive coordinator.
We turn now to a story of courage and perseverance. A man left unable to walk after a gruesome injury is standing once again and taking his first steps thanks to some remarkable technology. Here's ABC's Andrew Dimbert.
This is Michael Riccotti. For the first time since a motorbike accident left him paralyzed 5 years ago, he's now able to walk freely.
Every day I walk around 2 hours. Now my training is to improve the quality of the step, to be more fluid, and also the speed.
Someone with Riccotti's kind of injury has never been able to walk like this before. Researchers in Switzerland tell the BBC they were able to develop and surgically attach an electrical implant to Riccotti's spine, leading to this moment. Doctors say since his accident, there's been no signal from Riccotti's brain to his legs because his spinal cord was completely severed. But with this implant, some of those signals can now be sent directly to the legs, enabling him to walk. Researchers stress the procedure is not a cure for spinal injury, and the technology is still too complicated to be used in everyday life, but they say it's a breakthrough in improving quality of life.
The next step is to start earlier, just after the injury, when the potential of recovery is much larger.
It's not just the medical, but the mental, driving Riccotti's recovery. The Italian native tells the BBC from the moment of his injury, he never stopped rehabbing and never let his mood go down.
In this moment, okay, now I'm working.
So far, 9 people have received the implant, but more clinical trials are needed before it can be considered an effective treatment for paralysis. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
Just incredible.
It really
story.
is.
Wow. Okay, coming up, another incredible story, the new study on sleep and how it affects your weight.
Also ahead, just in time for Valentine's Day, the new teddy bears for adults.
It's an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
She fulfilled his every fantasy.
Because she played these games, my son died.
Was dubbed the first internet murder. Now Friday, a murder plot hatched in a chat room. Sex, the internet, murder.
Truly astounding.
And now she wants to come clean to 2020.
It was like a video game, and each man was another level.
That's a special kind of evil. All new 2020 premieres Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? To figure out what's really out there.
World News Now.
And America This Morning.
The best new videos.
Breaking news overnight.
Your money and concerns about inflation.
The pandemic is not over.
The stories people are talking about.
You don't want to shave your legs? Don't.
I was gonna say.
And what to expect in the day ahead.
From the top of the world, baby!
ABC World News Now and America This Morning.
Weekday morning starting at 2 a.m. Eastern.
Up all night to keep you up to date.
Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, Michael Strahan. Wake up with America's #1 most watched morning show. ABC's
Good Morning America.
Time to check the pulse, and we begin with an effortless way to shed some pounds.
Yeah, get some more sleep. A new study finds increasing the amount of time you sleep from 6.5 hours to 8.5 hours per night cuts about 270 calories on a daily basis.
That translates into a weight loss of roughly 26 pounds in 3 years. Well, next, a piece of furniture from Moscow is fascinating the internet.
Images from a sit-down between Russian President Vladimir Putin and French President Emmanuel Macron showed the two men sitting at opposite ends of a really long table. Someone said it looks like this Looney Tunes scene with Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam.
Another person said the picture looked like this scene from Beauty and the Beast. That's the one I was thinking of. And someone added movement, making the table look like a seesaw. Oh no, they got memed.
The internet is undefeated. Now to former President Trump's new coffee table book, which appears to be a big hit.
It's called Our Journey Together. It's filled with pictures and Twitter-like captions handwritten by Trump.
One picture shows him with House Speaker Pelosi, and the caption reads, attempting to listen to crazy Nancy Pelosi in the Oval Office.
Another picture shows former National Security Advisor John Bolton. In the caption, Trump calls Bolton, quote, dumb as a rock. The book has reportedly made $20 million so far.
Okay, finally, with Valentine's Day fast approaching, Build-A-Bear is expanding its reach.
The teddy bear company is now offering adult options. They're included in the After Dark collection, which features bears and shirts claiming it's wine o'clock somewhere and rosé over roses. Definitely not for kids.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Admit it, these days, what you need to know
Seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know,
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it? Feel smarter,
feel better.
feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
World News Now.
And America This Morning.
The best new videos.
Breaking news overnight.
Your money and concerns about inflation.
The pandemic is not over.
The stories people are talking about.
You don't want to shave your legs? Don't. I was going to say. And what to expect in the day ahead.
From the top of the world, baby! ABC World News Now and America This Morning.
Weekday morning starting at 2 a.m. Eastern.
Up all night to keep you up to date.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
Checking the top stories, the bridge between Detroit and Canada was closed overnight because crowds protesting COVID restrictions blocked traffic. It comes as several governors plan to lift mask mandates. California will lift its indoor mask requirement for vaccinated people next week, but that won't affect Los Angeles County, which has its own mandate.
The IRS says it will no longer be using facial recognition technology to authenticate taxpayers who create online accounts. The program is being pulled due to privacy concerns.
At the Olympics overnight, American figure skater Nathan Chen set a world record for points in his short program, and U.S.-born skier Eileen Gu won gold for China in the big air competition.
Today's weather, mild and clear across much of the country. Some snow in the upper Midwest and New England, and rain in parts of Florida.
And finally, our first look at the new Super Bowl commercials.
Will Gans gives us a sneak peek.
Remember when you bought your first house?
The price of a Super Bowl ad this year is scary high. Companies paying up to $7 million for 30 seconds of airtime. A new peak for the big game. Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen teaming up for Lay's. Meanwhile, real-life couple Scarlett Johansson and Colin Jost bringing their work home with them in an ad for Amazon.
When you have to do those love scenes with hot guys, is that fun or is that like the worst?
It's the worst.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
And one other unlikely pairing, Anna Kendrick and...
Oh, just call me Barbie.
Rocket Mortgage releasing a teaser.
It's the 60th anniversary of the Dream House, Barbie Dream House. It's a Rocket Mortgage ad. I'm going to guess Anna Kendrick and Barbie are going to go chasing a dream house in that ad.
Lots of celebs getting into game day. Lindsay Lohan and William Shatner for Planet Fitness.
Hey, William.
Martha and Snoop for Bic.
Do I smell?
That's right. Fondue time.
And BMW dropping a teaser of their ad starring a bearded Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Zeus.
And Zeus.
And expect something we've never seen before in between gameplay on Sunday.
This year, it's the Crypto Bowl. You've got FTX, which is giving away millions of dollars of Bitcoin.
But what about some of our old favorites, like the Budweiser Clydesdales?
Budweiser's going to make a real splash, and Clydesdale has a near-death experience. So I'm not sure how well that one's going to go over.
You don't mess with those Clydesdales. That is a risk.
No, you don't.
We're also going to see Zendaya in her first ever Super Bowl commercial to Boston Dynamics, robot busting a move, and Ted Lasso star Hannah Waddingham embracing her inner villain. Rhiannon, Mona.
Yes, and we actually might see some football, I hear.
Yes,
in
there's
between these
football in
commercials.
between the commercials.
All right.
Should be a good game.
That's what I'll be watching.
It's Tuesday, February 8th. Class is in session, but masks might not be. We start here. In a dramatic shift, several states consider removing mask requirements for schools.
These mask mandates aren't meant to last forever, and at some point we know they're going to disappear.
Today's lesson plan asking when it's time to go back to normal. Semiconductors are complicated. Stopping the assembly line is simple.
Do you know how many chips are in a car? 1,000 chips in a car.
The country's most dire shortage is now costing American jobs, and the 200-year antiquing trip stops right now.
90% of African art, of African heritage, is outside the continent.
As African countries ask for their art back, some activists have resorted to grabbing it off the walls. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. Throughout the pandemic, perhaps the environment that's caused the most angst is our nation's schools.
Open school!
As the coronavirus was emerging, many schools shut down. We saw how difficult that was for families, so we tried sending kids to schools, but told them to wear masks to keep them from spreading the virus among each other.
I signed an executive order that allows parents to opt out of mask mandates in schools.
There has been pushback. Several Republican-led states have actually banned mask mandates over objections from public health officials. But in many Democratic-led states, this is pretty much where families have remained for a year or two now.
All but 3 states reporting declining or plateauing cases.
But in just the last week or so, with cases plummeting by more than half nationwide, you started to see the question raised in these blue states too. At what point should these mask orders be lifted? Well, yesterday, the governor of Delaware said he wants to lift mask mandates in schools by the end of March.
This is a huge step back to normalcy for our kids.
The governor of New Jersey said if Omicron cases keep declining as expected, he'll end the mandate by March 7th. And in Connecticut, again, a Democratic-run state, that statewide rule could be gone by the end of this month, which has left some parents raising their hands asking, what changed? Let's check in with Andy Slavitt. He's a former member of the Biden Coronavirus Task Force and host of the podcast In the Bubble. Andy, I'm imagining parents saying, what? Like, I was told masks were the way to keep my family safe. Why would you ditch them now?
Well, it's good to be back on your show. These mask mandates aren't meant to last forever, and at some point we know they're going to disappear. I think the question is whether now's the time.
The last thing we wanted to do was to pull back too early, endanger our students and their families, or educators and staff, and make it more likely that outbreaks would force schools to close.
These are 3 good, responsible governors who've done good work throughout the pandemic, and I'm sure they're facing a lot of pressure, both internally and externally, to try to make sure the pandemic's over. It's just not quite clear that it is. And I think we need to take this step by step.
We need to prioritize our kids' mental health, their academic readiness, and it's not putting them at risk. We really need to move on and normalize our kids' lives.
It may be the case that we get to March and things are looking great and cases are low, in which case, nobody has a love for masks when we don't need them. But I'd also say nobody wants to take them away too soon because, doing that increases the spread, increases risk. And of course, finally, I think parents still are going to have an individual decision to make.
Right. And
hopefully it will still be appropriate for kids in the proper situation to be okay for them to wear masks, and teachers as well.
Yeah. Is there a sense either, within the Biden administration or experts that you've spoken to of like what is the magical moment at which you decide, like, we don't need these things in school anymore? Because I'm imagining 30 kids running around without masks. Like, how do you, what are the parameters for that decision?
Well, if you look at the epidemiological curve right now, it looks like it's dropping like a stone, and it is. But it's dropping from a pretty high place, and cases are still much higher than they've been when we've required mask mandates.
The country is still averaging more than 300,000 new cases a day, higher than any peak during previous surges.
Some of this, I think, is as much fatigue as it is, a scientific view, I might say. But normally
like liberals are getting tired of it too. Is that what we're learning here?
Well, everybody's tired of it. I mean, nobody has a monopoly on wanting the pandemic to be over. But I think the number that most public health people use is when we get to 10 cases per 100,000. That's pretty much enough to say that this is not spreading. And that's where we were last spring. I suspect we could get there again this spring, given the amount of coverage that we have of vaccines and of prior spread. And we may get there in March. But if we don't, then I think we have to make sure we recognize we still have a long way to go to get down to those levels.
Hey, the first question that's going to come up clearly is immunocompromised folks, right? Like they're thinking about their kid at school. Maybe that kid is told to wear a mask because under these rules, you'd still be allowed to wear a mask if you wanted to. But great, that's one kid wearing a mask, 29 other kids coming from God knows where with them. Can that parent at home be assured that that kid is not going to bring COVID home to them?
So immunocompromised people, their immune systems just don't do as good a job fighting off the virus if they were to get it. It doesn't necessarily mean that the cases will be more serious. Omicron will hit them about the same way. It's just they'll get less protection from the vaccine. So if I had someone in my household who is in a vulnerable situation, I would want to make sure that my kid wasn't bringing home COVID. And furthermore, if I was a teacher,
right,
and I had some of the same concerns, that would be on my mind as well.
And I feel like we're going to have that freedom to, have a mask off.
Wearing the mask is for your overall protection. I know that kids don't want to necessarily wear the mask, but it's really for their overall protection.
We've been stripped of our right to take care of our children and handed it over to somebody else, whether it's a school district, whether it's the governor. Parents no longer have a say.
Each special situation requires a different level of measure. If you're a governor, you can't make a law for every single person. You do have to, at some point, say, this is what the situation requires. So if we get to a point where the situation requires or allows us to take off some of the mandates around masks and so forth, that's still going to mean certain people are going to want to be more careful.
Yeah, and I'm trying, and I know these aren't your rules or anything, right? And the CDC hasn't even signed off on these, let alone the White House. But if I'm just trying to have you put yourself in the mind of like Phil Murphy or any of these governors here. Why not just keep the mask mandate in place for a lot? Like, what are the downsides to just keeping it in place for the foreseeable future?
Well, look, I think a couple things. There is no question that there is a learning deficit that exists, and that it's not optimal for kids to wear masks. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a small price to pay to have school in session.
Masks interfere with our youngest learners' ability to really understand nuanced speech. It interferes with our ability to really interpret complex facial emotions.
Their public health officials in their states might be telling them, look, in March, we are likely to be at these levels, and that's why it's good to do this. And, giving the public a sense that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. When we go through waves, it's just important to tell people that should a wave come back, we need to readjust again. That's hard. But I think you really do lose the public I'm not speaking just schools per se, but in general, if when things get better, you don't allow those conditions to improve. And I think if we'd not taken advantage of last spring and last summer, when cases were very low, to have more relaxed gatherings and so forth, we would have missed a really great window when there wasn't a lot of transmission. So I think that you're going to start to see that happen in many, many places. Schools, notwithstanding, as I think got some of the most challenging issues, but otherwise, I think we're going to see appropriately measures start to come down in places where illness is lower.
All right, Andy Slavitt, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Brad.
Next up on Starred Here, just go ahead and put that factory in park, the global chip shortage's latest victim, after the break.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast, now streaming on ABC News Live.
It was a scary time in the 70s. You had multiple bodies showing up in Los Angeles.
There were so many murders happening. You had to have a name for it, serial killer.
There was a human head in there. This was premeditated evil.
We have this clock. This person is going to do this again.
It's me against the killer. Who's going to win?
We'll see who laughs last.
What came next was unlike anything they had ever seen.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I risked my life. I put my family in danger. If I was caught, they would have put a bullet in my head. But it was the right thing to do. It was the only thing to do.
Terror plot foiled in Garden City, Kansas.
That would have been one of the most deadly acts of domestic terrorism ever in the United States.
It would have been Oklahoma City.
He put his family, himself, in jeopardy for us.
Assault on the Capitol, the ABC News original, exclusively on Hulu, now streaming. This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
If you weren't looking for it last Friday, you might have missed that the U.S. actually had a tremendous jobs report. Like, not only did jobs seem to hold remarkably steady during the Omicron surge last month, but numbers from previous months were revised way upwards, basically saying, despite everything you'd expect, this labor market has been shockingly strong for months now, which shows you how even with workers calling in sick, holiday shopping season winding down, employers still really want to hold on to their workers.
Our economy created 6.6 million jobs. You can't remember another year when so many people went to work in this country. There's a reason. It never happened.
But yesterday, in a worrisome announcement, the carmaker Ford announced it is pausing production at a few big auto plants in North America, Chicago, Kansas City, Mexico, among others, and workers getting sick aren't necessarily the problem here.
Across the country, the supply of crucial semiconductors is now alarmingly low, according to a Commerce Department survey.
People that I represent are on layoff again. Several of the plants are shut. We should have acted months before. The time is now. We have got to act.
It's all about those chips that economists have been warning about for months. ABC's Catherine Thorbeck has been reporting on perhaps this country's most significant shortage at this point. How bad has it gotten, Catherine?
So the chip shortage, I'm sure you've heard about it. It's the shortage of little semiconductors, electronic chips as we call them. And they're basically the building blocks of pretty much any computer system. So you think of personal gaming systems, you know, if you have a fridge which has a little screen, they go in pretty much, it's hard to think of any product or industry that isn't impacted by the chip shortage right now. And they've especially hit the auto industry very, very hard.
Do you know how many chips are in a car? 1,000 chips in a car. In an electric car, 2,000 chips.
There was sort of a perfect storm of reasons for that. A lot of them related to the pandemic. People thought that demand for autos would actually go down during the pandemic. And so automakers planned for that by, you know, reducing their orders of chips. And what actually ended up happening was demand for autos surged during the pandemic. You know, people were avoiding public transportation. People were planning getaways closer to home. And automakers just could not get their hands on these chips.
Mother Nature also played a role. From the winter ice storms in Texas that took a number of chip factories offline to a fire at a big supplier in Japan.
Just last week, our Commerce Secretary said that the median inventory held by chip consumers such as automakers, in 2019, they had a 40-day supply, and in 2021, they had a 5-day supply. So the chip shortage has gotten pretty dire.
Wait, and what does a 5-day supply mean? Like, what is that? It means, like, if we just stopped importing them, we'd have 5 days left?
So what that basically means is that if there's a natural disaster, if there's a COVID outbreak, or some kind of political instability, or any kind of disruption at one of these semiconductor facilities, which are mostly located abroad in Asia, it has the potential to shut down manufacturing here in the U.S. And that can put American jobs, American workers at risk.
Okay, so then what happened to Ford? Like, did they ran out of their 5 days, or what happened here?
So yeah, it's just because of the shortage of these semiconductors that Ford said it's suspending production for 1 week at 4 assembly plants and will operate with just 1 shift at others. So cities that are going to be impacted include Chicago, Kansas City, Wayne, Michigan, a plant in Mexico, as well as a plant in Dearborn, Michigan. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo actually last week said that it was an economic and national security imperative to solve this crisis.
Wait, why is it a national security? Where does national security come into it, Catherine?
Sure. So a military without access to semiconductors is actually a major vulnerability.
The fact is the United States relies heavily on other countries for these essential advanced semiconductors. If for any reason that supply chain was cut off, it would lead to very, very serious economic and security consequences across our entire economy.
They're also vital building blocks for cybersecurity defenses, which is very important given the amount of cyber attacks that made headlines last year.
Man, what if the supply was cut off entirely? This is not some fictional doomsday scenario. It's a real possibility.
You know, a lot of people think of chips as just in their gaming devices, and maybe they've heard about them in cars, but they also have a lot of vital uses for medical devices, military applications, cybersecurity tools, as I mentioned.
Oh, so this starts going beyond the auto industry pretty quickly. What is the plan then?
So there's been a big push to bring chip manufacturing back to the U.S. The only problem with that is it can take years to get these chip manufacturing plants off the ground. So in the meantime, I guess what that means is if there's a natural disaster, if there's a COVID outbreak, if there's any kind of disruption to these chip manufacturers that we rely on abroad, it can have a very big impact on the economy over here, on automakers, on business, and ultimately on American jobs.
All right, that is ABC's Catherine Thorbeck. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you, Brad. It was a pleasure.
Something that still strikes me almost 2 years after the death of George Floyd is how quickly protests spread, not just around the country, but around the world. And it wasn't always the same issues resonating everywhere. In the U.S., these protests were about racism in general, specifically, though, about police violence. But if you looked over to Europe, where police killings are not as common...
We're constantly reminded of that past and constantly reminded of how we were seen as second- or third-class citizens.
People were taking hard looks at other issues, like centuries of colonization, how that shaped the lives of people of color inside and outside of Europe.
People are saying, oh, it's our history, it's our history. Half of the people that are protesting for this to stay up don't even know what it's held up for.
This conversation has become especially fraught in one of the most European of traditions, fancy art museums.
Now to a debate in Europe about what to do with art and artifacts, many of which were stolen or looted from Africa.
These were the places held up as the gold standard for centuries who'd made their name by showing off treasures of other civilizations. Well, now that debate is taking on new urgency. ABC's Inez de la Quatara is based in Paris. Inez, what is the debate that's unfolding there?
Yeah, so this debate is over whether looted art that was taken from Africa during colonization, whether that should now be returned. So a number of African nations have now put in requests with various European governments. So France, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, they want their art back. And it's not up to museums, it's up to individual countries to decide what to do with the art. But should that art be returned to Africa?
It was originated from this place. So when they bring it back now, that pride, it has come to us again.
Those who are in favor of restitution say it's time, former colonial powers kind of do right by these countries, but also they talk about these new generations that are now growing up in places like Benin or Nigeria and don't have any history to look at.
The descendants of the people who casted those bronzes, they don't actually they've never seen that work, because most of them can't fly and afford to fly into London.
You talked to Marie-Cécile Zansou from the Zansou Foundation. She is a big advocate for restitution.
When you grow up in the Occidental world, in Europe, in the United States, in Asia, you have museums.
You can go to the Louvre here and see tons of French painters and centuries of French history, and a French person knows exactly what French history is. And the same goes for the US.
Is it logical to tell them, look, we lost a war 150 years ago, so now everything is gone and you will never have an access to your history?
There was a report actually commissioned by the French government in 2018 that found that 90% of African art, of African heritage, is outside the continent.
Wow. What a number. So then what do you do? Because this has been a problem that far preceded Black Lives Matter, right? I mean, this has been going back clearly centuries. So if nothing's happened yet, what would make it happen now?
So it's been years of talks. It's certainly sped up in recent years, I think in the last couple years especially, but this really started in 2006.
In 2006, we had the opportunity to present the French Daomean National Collection.
Benin asked France to send back some art that had been looted for a temporary exhibit. France did that, and then that attracted, it was like hundreds of thousands of people came out to see this art that hadn't been back in over a century.
From that time, when the objects left back for France, the question was, why are these objects leaving? It's our history, it's our heritage. Why is it in Paris?
And so from there, that kind of started the conversation. Then France was the first country, actually, just in October, to send a significant amount of art back to Africa.
A homecoming was held in Benin for artworks stolen by French colonial soldiers.
And some say France and other countries need to do a lot more.
Je suis venu récupérer ce qui nous appartient. Vous voulez défendre les voleurs?
So you have this one activist, Mwazulu Diabanza, who is based in Paris. He is kind of taking matters into his own hands, and he has been going to museums, taking objects, and then in some cases walking out of the museums with the objects. And
wait, sorry, he's stealing the artwork? That's the plan?
That is basically what he's doing, although he never actually keeps it. Were you scared of getting arrested?
Non, vous voyez bien, avant cette scène, je disais déjà au juge.
They took it back before you left the museum. Ils ont pris l'objet avant que vous sortiez du musée.
Oui.
And he has been fined thousands of euros. He's been sentenced to prison for attempted theft. But he claims his goal is not to steal the art. It's not to keep the art. He just wants to raise awareness, draw attention to the fact that a lot of these objects were looted.
Le sang a coulé.
He says things like, I don't steal, I don't kill, I don't rape like they did.
Vous êtes en complicité avec la France.
When he's confronted by security, he actually asks security for help. He tells them, you as police officers, you're supposed to help us identify the thieves who stole this. Who did these looters ask for permission? Why should I have to ask for permission?
Hey, is there a difference in his mind or in any of these activists' mind? Is there a line between looting, stealing stuff from another country and coming back to Europe with it and showing it off as your own, versus acquiring art. Like you create an agreement with another country when it's particularly down on its luck, perhaps, or doesn't even know what it's got sitting underneath its feet. Like, but you know, all the paperwork is signed. It is legally yours in theory.
Yeah, so interesting point. So Marie-Cécile Zansu from the Zansu Foundation, she makes the difference between looted art and art that was, you know, just bought.
It's very different buying things on the market, on an international art market, and taking the things with your soldiers during the wars.
But for some activists like Muzulu Diabanze, you know, he says that even the art that was purchased was oftentimes not purchased at a fair price.
So you want to go back and take more art?
Aussi longtemps qu'ils vont continuer.
And, you know, another big argument we hear against restitution is that European museums, American museums were able to keep the art, and then maybe if we send it back to Africa, African museums won't have the resources to take care of the art.
They are not in a position to dictate to us as to how we are going to look after these artifacts.
We spoke to the head of the National Commission for Museums and Monuments in Nigeria.
There shouldn't be any string attached to any repatriation.
He told us they're building a brand new museum in Nigeria to house all this art that's now being returned to Nigeria. And he also says, you know, how would Europeans know how we're going to take care of our art when we've never been given the chance to take care of our art because it's never been here?
It is our right to request and, ask for these artifacts to be returned.
So then, going forward then, Inez, like besides elaborate heists, like stealing the art back, what are the options here? And do other countries, outside of France, do other countries and museums have interest in implementing those options?
You know, former colonial powers have kind of had to reevaluate their own roles. So it's had a bit of a domino effect. So you do have Germany says it's going to be sending art back this year in 2022. The Netherlands and Belgium are also taking a good hard look at their museums.
World-famous Benin bronzes were looted by British troops in 1897.
But then you have other countries holding firm. So the British Museum.
The British Museum, which houses the largest and most significant collection, has resisted calls for a full return.
We did get a statement from them, and they told us they're working as hard as possible, they say, to share their collections, but they haven't yet returned any art.
Yeah, some fascinating conversations in this reporting that you did. Inez de la Quatara there in the epicenter of the whole debate in Paris. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
One last thing. You thought Gen Z was the protest generation? Well, wait until their proteges grow up.
That's how we feel about it. We feel really strongly about it. We want to protest for it and bring it back.
Recently, in Vacaville, California, officials did what a lot of schools nationwide have done. They revamped their menus to make them healthier. One of those changes was to get rid of chocolate milk.
Got milk.
So Sierra Vista's 4th grade class did the only thing they could think of. They staged a walkout.
What do we want? Chocolate milk! When do we want it? Now!
This class of 4th graders held an outdoor protest complete with signs, catchy slogans, and a press push.
Back when we had chocolate milk, when I was in 4th grade, when there wasn't COVID, you would be lucky to get a spot to get some chocolate milk.
Their teacher, Miss Doss, had encouraged them to come up with concrete demands, which led to a sit-down with the administration who made some concessions to the kids. Rather than a blanket ban, they will now get chocolate milk once every other week, and in those off weeks, chocolate chip cookies will be available as a dessert. The students said they are prepared to accept those terms.
Things that students get in schools should be healthy, and they should be helping students to be on a path to a healthy lifestyle.
Now, according to health experts, mixing chocolate milk is eminently reasonable. It's basically adding sugar to something that doesn't need it. But some school districts are going even further. New York City's new mayor, who's vegan, has introduced Vegan Fridays. How's that working out?
I was thinking, it's a burrito.
Luckily for teachers, these kids are not threatening to occupy the cafeteria yet. Meanwhile, all my fellow millennials just moved back in with our parents while we waited for the chocolate milk to become affordable again. You know, the milk market had been all screwed up. It wasn't our fault. These kids, a little bit more direct. Start here tomorrow. Hit that follow button if you haven't already. I'm Brad Milkey. See you tomorrow.
extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcast.
World News Now.
And America This Morning.
The best new videos.
Breaking news overnight.
Your money and concerns about inflation.
The pandemic is not over.
The stories people are talking about.
You don't want to shave your legs? Don't. I was gonna say. And what to expect in the day ahead.
From the top of the world, baby! ABC World News Now and America This Morning.
Weekday mornings starting at 2 a.m. Eastern.
Up all night to keep you up to date.
Right now, with so much at stake, Sunday mornings, this is the place. Taking on all the tough questions. Straightforward reporting. No spin, no hype, no bull. Thank you for making ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos the #1 Sunday morning news show versus the competition.
Welcome to This Week.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back. We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Tonight, as some states plan to end mandates and COVID cases drop, why the daily death toll remains high. Plus, the Russia-Ukraine standoff. More Americans turn to World News Tonight with David Muir, the most watched newscast on all of television.
Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Get ready. This morning, we are heading to Hollywood.
It's Hollywood's Golden Morning.
The home of the family, Madrigal, we're on our way.
We're counting down to the Oscar nominations.
Lucy, I'm home.
Who will be in this year's race?
With your gift, your talent, your vision, are you kidding?
From Tick, Tick, Boom
To wake up the generation.
to King Richard.
You saying we hard on these kids, you know why? Because we are.
To West Side Story. And will Jennifer Hudson get a record-breaking nod for her role as the Queen of Soul? We're heading to Hollywood for this year's Oscar nominations live.
Good Tuesday morning, everyone. I am Janae Norman. Thank you so much for streaming with us on this Oscars nomination morning. We are just minutes away from finding out which of Hollywood's biggest stars will be named nominees for this year's Oscars. And there are so many great movies out there, but only 10 will be up to take home the Oscar for Best Picture. But first, let's take a look at this year's awards by the numbers. So this is the 94th Academy Awards. There are 23 different categories up for Oscar Gold, with 276 movies in contention and just 47 days to go until Oscar Sunday. That is set for March 27th, about a month or so later than usual. But this year, the ceremony will return to its home in Hollywood. You see it right there, the Dolby Theater, after last year's delayed show was held at Union Station in downtown LA with a very scaled down audience. Still a lovely affair, there as we were there on the red carpet. All of that, of course, because of the pandemic. And the pandemic still very much having an impact on things like the way we watch movies. Many of the top Oscar contenders were never even released in theaters. Instead, we were able to stream them from the comfort of our own couches. Can't really complain about that. We're going to get into what it all means for the future of Hollywood a little bit later, but first, the here and now. Let's talk about who could be joining the Oscars race today. There are those who've been nominated numerous times before and some newbies who could hear their names called for the first time. With so many categories and even more possibilities, we call, of course, on our expert, Chris Connolly, to take us through it all.
Stop all that bragging.
From Will Smith playing Venus and Serena Williams' father in King Richard.
You're gonna be the best that ever was.
To Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana in Spencer.
It looks different now. Everything looks different.
And aspiring egotier Lin-Manuel Miranda for Tick, Tick, Boom, starring Andrew Garfield.
Stop the clock. Take time out.
And a song from Encanto.
Y navegando un mundo que cambia y sigue cambiando.
All these and more could get big Oscar news this morning, along with some big movies. Best Picture's 10 spots.
You're not Peter Parker.
Offer a possible opening for Spider-Man No Way Home to swing through, alongside the otherworldly Dune.
The bloodline ends forever. Kill them all.
And from Shang-Chi and Black Widow.
My plan was to drive us away.
Well, your plan sucks.
Look for 2021's box office standouts to earn Oscar recognition in the visual effects category. Otherwise, multiple nominations likely await director Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog.
People helped you, Fatso. One person in particular taught you and me ranching.
And Kenneth Branagh's Belfast. But let's ask an awkward question, like, do people care? COVID-19 and streaming services have brought big changes for film audiences. So, will watched-at-home hits like the heartwarming underdog Coda and the star-studded Don't Look Up get a mention?
At this very moment, I say we sit tight and assess.
And will past winners Jennifer Hudson or Lady Gaga be up for more?
And a big thanks to Chris Connolly for that primer. But to dig in a little bit more, let's bring in our panel. SiriusXM radio host and ABC News contributor Mike Muse here on set with me to keep me company. Appreciate you being here, Mike.
Good morning.
Entertainment reporter for ESPN's The Undefeated, Miss Kelly Carter, joining us from LA. Love when Kelly's here. And of course, Clayton Davis, film awards editor at Variety. Good morning to all of you guys. We've done this award show thing before. Now we're getting ready for the nominations. Let's start by just getting a general feel for who you think are the big individual contenders and who your front runner is for Best Picture. Mike, I want to start with you.
Hey, Jeanette, you look great, first of all.
Thank you. So do you. I'm loving the glasses.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, listen, my favorite film of all time is Macbeth. I mean, come on. Denzel Washington, Frances McDormand on Shakespeare can do no wrong. I'm also, too, loving Coda. That was a really great film. I think The Power of the Dog is going to have an incredible morning. And I also am curious about, did I say Coda already?
You did.
Okay.
I was going to say, because we were
down.
talking about how good of a good feeling movie Coda is. Kelly, I want to bring you in. What are you thinking? Big individual contenders.
I'm going to kind of echo Mike a little bit. I mean, Macbeth was my favorite film this cycle. Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. I also loved the colorblind casting of this film and the excellent performances that we saw in Macbeth. My favorite, hands down.
And Clayton, how about you?
Dune is probably going to lead the day, so I'm really excited to see what Dune does, as well as Power of the Dog. My favorite film is Come On, Come On, and I'm just hoping to hear it somewhere today.
Somewhere. Okay, so another big category today, of course, is original song. There are a lot of big contenders: Beyonce, Billie Eilish, Ariana Grande. We need to talk about Encanto, because the song that everybody's talking about, we don't talk about Bruno, is not up. It's not going to be included today. Break down, explain this to us, Clayton.
Well, listen, for the studio to submit for original song, they have to do it by November 1st. So at that time, it wasn't even there yet. You know, like, it wasn't out in theaters. They didn't know what big of a hit it was going to be. So they did miss the deadline there, but I think this hit of Bruno is actually going to have a really good effect on the song that actually is in contention and could pop up today for Lin-Manuel Miranda, which could make him an EGOT recipient.
And that would be huge. We'll be watching for that. All right, so we all know that the pandemic has impacted so many aspects of our lives, including the way that we watch movies. So check out these numbers. Last year, the North American box office raked in $4.5 billion, nearly double profits from 2020, which were just over $2 billion. But those numbers are still down from before the pandemic. So basically, Americans aren't rushing back out to theaters as much as before COVID. A lot of movies are still going directly to streaming. So Mike, 2 years into this pandemic and the shifting landscape, how do you think this is going to impact the future of Hollywood?
The pandemic has changed consumer behavior dynamic patterns across the board, how we eat, how we shop, how we engage, how we interact with loved ones. And so, of course, it's going to have an impact on our consumer behavior patterns when it comes to film. I think people now are enjoying so much, I know I am, staying at home, watching television in comfort of my own home. Janae, there's nothing like having friends over, having a bottle of wine, ordering from the food service. I have a great sound bar. Right? I have a great television, right? And I can set their own temperature, which is most important. And so I'm loving being at home.
It is so funny you said temperature because movie theaters being cold is my #1 complaint. But it sounds like movie nights are now at Mike's. Clayton, many of the top grossing box office movies of 2021 aren't projected to be contenders. Spider-Man No Way Home has just done bonkers at the box office. Now the 3rd highest grossing domestic release of all time, Sing 2, The Kingsman. What does this say about box office blockbusters when it comes to award season?
Listen, there's always been a mindset of follow the money, and that's where you can find your Oscar contenders, and that isn't always the case. If that was the case, Avengers would have been a Best Picture, nominee a long time ago. So I think what the Oscar voters look for, it's still about the movies. And while consumers are going out to see these films, we're not seeing that translate to the viewership. But Spider-Man is in the running, and now that we're back to a straight 10 or a guaranteed 10 films to be nominated for Best Picture, the voting allows a better opportunity to see something like Spider-Man make the lineup. But as we saw a few years ago, Black Panther did just fine.
That is a very good point, especially with that set 10 for Best Picture. Now, Kelly, you are one of those believers that some movies are really meant to be watched on the big screen. A lot of people agree with you. But with the increasing influence of streaming, do you think that that'll change the types of movies that get made or change how they're made?
In some ways, I think so. I mean, I am a purist in the fact that I believe that we should watch the films as the directors, as the creators intended us to watch it. A really great example, I think, if we go years back, is the second Batman movie with Heath Ledger won his Oscar posthumously. That film was made to be seen on an IMAX theater. The director specifically shot that film using camera, so the viewer really got an exceptional experience. And I felt that way when I went back to the theater this last year and saw some of those really big budget films. You have to see it on a 50-foot screen. But that said, I think we're forever changed because of the pandemic. I, too, like watching on my couch under an electric blanket.
Okay, so there are ways to get Kelly to movie night. All right, so let's switch gears now and talk about diversity in Hollywood. We all remember back in 2015, I see you all nodding along, when there was so little diversity among the nominees that it sparked the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite. And that's really put a spotlight on the issue of representation in Hollywood. So where does that stand now? The diversity, the inclusion, the representation in Hollywood. Let's go back to our panel. Kelly, what do you make of the progress since 2015, since hashtag #OscarsSoWhite?
I mean, we've seen some progress. Most certainly last year, I thought, was a phenomenal year. We saw 3 black men be nominated in the Best Supporting Actor category. We saw a Muslim actor. We saw the first actor of Asian descent be nominated. We saw a woman of color win Best Director. Like, these are things that indicate that we're moving in the right direction. That said, let's wait and see what today's nominees look like to see if we're going to continue down this same kind of, pathway of progression. I hope so, but we'll see.
Taking the wait and see approach. I understand that. All right, Clayton, do you feel like you can see that progress? Some of that progress that Kelly was just talking about, do you feel like you see that diversity when you look at some of this year's top contenders?
This year, listen, last year we had a record number. It was 9 out of the 20 acting categories were occupied by a person of color. This year, we're going to see a decrease in that realm. And I'm one that always says the enemy of progress or of progress is complacency. People see last year and they signal, oh, we're going to be fine. But this year, you know, we're struggling to see a black woman nominated in lead actress. Jennifer Hudson probably stands the best chance there, along with maybe Tessa Thompson. You know, supporting actor is going to be filled with just white men more than likely. So we are seeing progress, but we need a consistent movement in that direction, and that's what we'll be looking for, you know, as the years continue.
So that consistent movement. Mike, I want to bring you in. Do you feel that the progress we've seen that Clayton just laid out, that it's been enough?
Well, nothing's ever going to be enough, but we have to recognize incremental change. And the membership department and the academy had two objectives. The first objective was an increased diversity amongst their new inductees, so inducting new members in each of the categories that can nominate. And after that, then they had the second objective, which is to make sure those individuals are able to get out the vote. What we discovered over the last week is that the Oscars are up 35% in voting from previous years. This is the first time that the Oscars has ever had this large of an increase and this record turnout of Oscar voters and nominators. And so we're going to see what's going to happen. And that's due to the membership took a different tack. They almost created, Janae, a GOTV effort like we do in politics. They went to all the studios, the distributors, the talent agencies, and really talked about what they're trying to do and change, but how to engage their talent and the execs and how to nominate and how to vote. So I think we might be in for some surprise and some shockers this morning.
I love hearing that, Mike, and I really like that you broke it down. You answered my next question, which was, when will it ever be enough? Will it ever be enough? And you said no, but we've got to acknowledge the incremental change. Clayton, Oscars CEO touting that they had the largest turnout in history, 9,400 people. This is what Mike was just telling us about. How much of a difference do you think that makes on the films that we'll see get nominated?
See, well, that's what becomes an unknown factor. It's about what group really showed up. Is it the establishment that we typically have seen in past years, or is it, you know, a good chunk of that new membership? And depending on which group has more of a showing with the voting, that's how we'll see, you know, these surprises come through the fray. But one thing I always like to highlight, the Academy has often been looked at as a scapegoat to what the real problem is, and that's just Hollywood. The Academy can't nominate what's not there. So while we have a few films that are in contention that have people of color, there's still not enough, and we can't besmirch the Academy for not choosing the 3 films that are there. We need them to have a plethora of choices, and that's what we want to see.
All really good points, and this is why it's so important to have you guys here to break down the fact that, yeah, they're touting these big numbers of people getting involved with the voting, but what does that really mean? And Kelly, I want to bring you in again, because this year's Oscars will have the first solo black producer, Will Packer. I know that he is a friend of yours. What do you think Will Packer has in store for us?
Man, I can't wait to see what Will Packer has in store. What I will say about Will is we know that he is for the culture and of the culture. He went to an HBCU. He's a member of a Black Greek letter organization, and he has gifted us films that really reflect an experience that we don't always see in cinema. So I expect him to kind of translate that, I think, for a really broader mainstream audience. And I'm excited to see what he has in store.
So excited to see. He recently confirmed there's going to be a girls' trip too. So you know it's going to be something very entertaining for Oscars, at least. Kelly, thank you. We are just a few minutes away from this year's Oscar nominations. We're taking you to Hollywood live after just a quick break. Stick around with us.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
Thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday morning. It is Hollywood's golden morning as we await the beginning of Oscar nominations. Should be getting underway in just a few moments here. We are joined by an expert panel as we await the nominations. I want to bring you guys back in. What do you think could be a dark horse when it comes to Best Picture? Kelly, I want to start with you.
Ooh, a really big dark horse, Zola. I mean, I love that film. That was one of my favorite experiences at Sundance a couple years ago. It's not going to get called, but if it did, I would be very, very happy with that.
Clayton, weigh in. What do you think?
I think we could see a blockbuster make the lineup. I don't think it'll be Spider-Man like everyone is thinking. I think No Time to Die may capture a lot of that British voting bloc and could make a play in the end, or another international film, maybe like Parallel Mothers or Drive My Car.
Yeah, I wondered about Parallel Mother. Yep, Kelly was liking that one too. Mike, what do you think?
For my dark horse, The Harder They Fall.
The Harder They Fall.
I would love
really?
to see that. I would love to see that. They haven't been in any conversations. But.
All right, well, we will see the nominations just about to get underway, so let's head to Hollywood.
Theaters or in your homes to share great stories told on the screen. And today we celebrate that thanks to the nearly 9,500 voting members of the Academy. They're movie makers, sure, but really movie lovers about to share the films they've loved the most this year. I hope you're doing the same with your friends and your family. Now's the time. Movie lovers unite. Let's meet your announcement hosts, Tracee Ellis Ross and Leslie Jordan.
I am so excited. I went to sleep dressed like this. Now let's go to the Oscars, Tracee. What time are you picking me up?
Uh-oh, Leslie, someone did not read the memo. The Oscars are not tonight. They're on March 27th. This morning, we just announced the nominees.
This is why I hate being hunkered down. I never know what day it is or month. But if it's not the Oscars, why are you dressed so nice?
This whole thing? This is my workout outfit, Leslie. I just threw this on to go to cycling class in an hour. All right. This year's Oscars theme is Movie Lovers Unite. And during this next half hour, we will be joined by some very special movie lovers across the country to help us announce some of the nominees. Are you ready, Leslie?
Wait, I'll be right back. This outfit, it doesn't feel right for the Oscar announcements.
Okay. All right, well, Oscar nominees in most categories are chosen by members of their respective branches, but nominees for Best Picture are chosen by the entire Academy membership. And if you stay tuned to find out how this year you, the fans, will be able to get to vote for your favorite movie and movie moment featured on the Oscar telecast.
Now I'm ready. I love it. Understated and traditional.
Very much understated.
Here are the nominees for performance by an actress in a supporting role.
Jessie Buckley in The Lost Daughter. Ariana DeBose in West Side Story. Judi Dench in Belfast. Kirsten Dunst in Power of the Dog, and Anjanue Ellis in King Richard.
My turn. Here are the nominees for achievement in costume design.
Ooh.
Cruella, Cyrano, Dune, Nightmare Alley, and West Side Story. I'm a little hurt my costume wasn't nominated again. Well, maybe next year. Here are the nominees for achievement in sound. Belfast, Dune, No Time to Die, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story.
As part of our movie lovers uniting across the country, let's go to Troy, Michigan. Joining us are 11 healthcare professionals from Beaumont Hospital. Reading the nominees is physician's assistant and fellow movie lover, Shantia Bobo Harden, who loves the movie Girl Trip. Shantia, over to you.
Thank you, Tracy. Here are the nominees for Achievement in Music, Original Score. Don't Look Up, Dune, Encanto, Parallel Mothers, and The Power of the Dog.
Thank you so much, Shantia. And thank you to all the healthcare workers at Beaumont and all across the country who do so much for all of us. Thank you. Leslie, wait. Is that an official Oscar pendant? And if so, why did I get one?
I borrowed it from your Oscar nominations gift basket.
Ah, okay.
And now, adapted screenplay. The nominees are Coda, screenplay by Sean Hayter. Screenplay by Ryusuke Hamaguchi and Taka Masaoka. Dune, screenplay by John Spates, Denis Villeneuve, and Eric Roth.
The Lost Daughter, written by Maggie Gyllenhaal.
And The Power of the Dog, written by Jane Campion.
Here are the nominees for Original Screenplay. Belfast, written by Kenneth Branagh.
Don't Look Up, screenplay by Adam McKay, story by Adam McKay and David Sirota.
King Richard, written by Zach Balin.
Licorice Pizza, written by Paul Thomas Anderson.
And The Worst Person in the World, written by Eskil Vogt and Joachim Trier.
Here are the nominees for Best Animated Short Film. Affairs of the Bestia, Box Ballet, Robin Robin, and The Windshield Wiper. Another category for me. Back to back, Leslie again. I think they like my announcer voice. And now, the nominees for Best Live Action Short Film.
Well done.
A La Cachu, Take and Run, The Dress, The Long Goodbye, On My Mind, and Please Hold. It's so appropriate that I just announced animated short film and live action short for I Am Animated and Short.
Oh, Leslie. And now here are the nominees for performance by an actor in a supporting role. Corrine Hines in Belfast. Troy Kotzer in Coda. Jesse Plemons in The Power of the Dog. J.K. Simmons in Being the Ricardos. And Cody Smith-McPhee in Power of the Dog. In just a few minutes, we've got more nominee announcements coming up, including those for lead actor and actress, director, and Best Picture. How much fun is this?
Well, this is the most fun I have ever had at 5:25 in the morning. Not.
You can tell that Leslie and I are bristling. We are bristling with diversity. We are bringing diversity to these announcements. I am Moderna.
And I am sparkling Pfizer.
Leslie, are you boosted?
Why, yes, Tracy, I'm sitting on a pillow.
Okay, joining us is another movie lover, film enthusiast, Reese Feldman. Reese, what's your reaction to the nominees for supporting actress? Tell us everything.
This is such a stacked category. I love it so much. Jessie Buckley for The Lost Daughter. I really loved her, and I'm thinking of ending things, so I'm really excited that she's getting recognized for this. Although Olivia Colman's getting a lot of praise for her performance in this movie, it's Jessie Buckley who helps move the story forward from the past. So she's just incredible. Ariana DeBose, hearing her name announced really just made me smile. Simply put, she's perfect as Anita in West Side Story. And for a character that's already won Rita Moreno an Oscar 60 years prior, it's just so incredible to me that she was able to step into this role and just make it entirely her own. Dame Judi Dench for Belfast, 7-time Oscar nominee, already won back in '98 for Shakespeare in Love. She's just so dialed in throughout this entire film and just plays great off of Kieran Hines. And I'm kind of excited to see her maybe get a second win. Kirsten Dunst for The Power of the Dog. This was one I was really hoping for. I mean, that piano scene, gosh, she is such a talent, and I really hope this is the role that she's going to be remembered for moving forward. And I think the success of the movie largely deals with how good she is. And lastly, but definitely not least, Anjanue Ellis. She has been consistently amazing in every role that she's been in for decades. And although she plays a supporting role in King Richard, she really does feel like an additional lead next to Will Smith for just how much power she brings to the performance. So it was just a great category.
What's your take on the costume nominees?
All right, we're going to take this chance to bring our experts back in. Mike Muse, Kelly Carter, Clayton Davis. Kelly, I want to start with you because that guy was just talking about Anjanue Ellis. You said that you were hoping she got some recognition. She did.
Yes, I am so excited because look, she has been looked at as like a secret in Hollywood, and she is no longer a secret. I'm so happy that people are really understanding how multi-layered and talented this woman is. She has killed it in every role she's done, quite frankly, in the last 10 years, and now she's finally getting this major Hollywood love, and I'm so excited for her.
Major Hollywood love. Clayton, I want to bring you in now. When we're looking at the Best Supporting Actress contenders who have now been nominated, who do you think was snubbed?
Katrina Balfe surprisingly missed for her performance in Belfast in lieu of her co-star Judi Dench, who right now is the oldest woman to ever be nominated in that category now. It was actually really shocking that they made that switch. But also missing there was Cate Blanchett, but Jessie Buckley also got in for The Lost Daughter and probably is going to ride in with Olivia Colman, who is expected to get a nomination today.
We said we were looking for the surprises and the snubs. We're getting a little bit of everything already. Now, Mike, looking at supporting actor, I saw your reaction when they called Jesse Plemons. He wasn't one that was a shoo-in.
Not at all. Yo, I'm mad my guy Jared Leto did not get the nod. Like, I was rooting for, like, we all know that this is Cody Smith-McPhee's to lose in The Power of the Dog. He delivered a masterful performance.
Yes.
And I was rooting for my guy Jared Leto. His performance in House of Gucci was masterful. He brought so much depth, dynamic, nuance. I thought he gave such sparks of energy in times when the movie was slow. I was rooting for him. And Bradley Cooper got snubbed, too, as well. I really enjoyed his performance in Licorice Pizza. So I was really surprised by that category.
Kelly and Clayton are nodding along regarding Bradley Cooper. We've got just under a minute until the next group of nominations are announced. But I want to ask you guys real quick, because we saw Jesse Plemons as well as Cody Smith-McPhee plus Kirsten Dunst, what do you think this could say about the strength of The Power of the Dog? We already knew that they were going to have a good morning, but Clayton, what do you think this could mean?
Power of the Dog is going to have a great day today. I could see it already. And I think that even it nabbing a sound nomination is also very indicative. If you want to listen for editing in the next round, because I think a real race is forming right now.
Kelly, I want you to weigh in too. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I think we're going to hear being called for Best Picture, nominations, and it's probably going to end up getting the most nominations, or certainly some of the most nominations outside of this morning. So that's exciting.
It is exciting. All right, let's go back out to Hollywood for the next round of nominations. Just about to get started.
There's a moment each nominee will never forget. Not that I would know what an Oscar nomination is like, but a boy can dream.
Oh, Leslie, and a girl can dream too.
For those hunker-downers just joining us, good morning.
Good morning. And for those who have been watching, welcome back. All right. Now it is time for the rest of the Oscar nomination announcements, including the big one at the end for Big Picture. Here are the nominees for achievement in film editing. Don't Look Up, Dune, King Richard, The Power of the Dog, and Tick, Tick, Boom. Why, Leslie, don't you look beautiful?
Well, thank you, Tracy.
Oh, you're
Next,
welcome.
I get to announce everyone up for achievement in makeup and hairstyling, none of whom showed up at my house this morning. I did this all myself.
You did?
Yeah. Now, here are the nominees. Coming to America, Cruella, Dune,
The Eyes of Tammy Faye,
and House of Gucci.
And now it is time to meet a huge movie fan coming to us from Tampa.
A huge movie fan and a huge guy. Well, to me, everyone is huge.
Oh, Leslie. He is a WWE superstar who established the award-winning Thaddeus M. Bullard Academy at Sly Middle Magnet School. The Academy's mission is to serve economically disadvantaged students by providing them with a first-class education and creating a wonderful culture of positivity. Here is Titus O'Neill.
Thanks, Tracy and Leslie. To read the names of the nominees in this next category is a fellow movie lover, 8th grade track star, high honor roll student, Courtney Anderson, who loves the entire Twilight movie series. Courtney, take it away.
Here are the nominees for the Best Animated Feature Film: Encanto, Flea, Luca, The Mitchells vs. the Machine, and Raya and the Lost Dragon.
Well done.
Yay, yay, yay. So thanks to Titus, Courtney, and all those amazing students for joining us.
And now, here are the nominees for Achievement in Music Original Song. Be Alive from King Richard.
Dos Oruguitas from Encanto.
Down to Joy from Belfast.
No Time to Die from No Time to Die.
And Somehow You Do from 4 Good Days.
The category is Best Documentary Short. Oh, you're making me do the short category again.
I didn't do it. It wasn't me.
It was you. It was you. Here are the nominees for Best Documentary Short Subject: Audible, Lead Me Home, The Queen of Basketball, 3 Songs for Ben Azir, and When We Were Bullies. And now, here are the nominees for Best Documentary Feature: Ascension, Attica, Flea, Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised, and Riding with Fire.
Joining us from Times Square are New York's bravest members of the Fire Department of New York. At the microphone is fellow movie fan Lieutenant Thomas Carrera, whose favorite movie is Goodfellas.
Thank you, Leslie and Tracy. Coming to you live from Times Square, here are the nominees for Achievement in Visual Effects. The envelope, please. Dune, Free Guy, No Time to Die, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Spider-Man, No Way Home.
Thank you so much to all the firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs for all that you do. I wave every time you drive by. I say, hello, firefighters. I really do. Next up, the nominees for Achievement in Cinematography. Dune, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, The Tragedy of Macbeth, and West Side Story. And now, here are the nominees for Achievement in Production Design. Dune, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, The Tragedy of Macbeth, and West Side Story. Oh my God, Leslie, are you wearing something different again?
Just because I'm hunkered down doesn't mean I can't dress up. Okay. So here are the nominees for Best International Feature Film. Drive My Car, Japan. Flee, Denmark. The Hand of God, Italy. Luana, A Yak in the Classroom, Bhutan. And The Worst Person in the World, Norway.
Leslie, you keep stealing all my lines.
There's one for you.
Okay, thanks. Let's head to Ira Aldridge Theater at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where we have a special presenter. Felicia Rashad is Dean of the Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts and joins us with some of her students. Hello.
Hello, and thank you, Leslie and Tracy. All of our students here are so inspired by Chadwick Boseman, a Howard grad who was so committed to this university. And as you know, Chadwick was nominated last year for Best Actor, and we are so honored to announce the nominees in this category. Speaking on behalf of the students who are with us today is a senior who's receiving his BFA in acting, John Woods III.
The nominees for performance by an actor in a leading role are Javier Bardem in Being the Riccardos, Benedict Cumberbatch in The Power of the Dog, Andrew Garfield in Tick, Tick, Boom, Will Smith in King Richard, and Denzel Washington in The Tragedy of Macbeth.
Yes.
Yes. Well done. Beautiful. Thank you, Felicia and John and all of the students who joined us today.
And now, the nominees for performance by an actress in a leading role. Jessica Chastain in The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Olivia Colman in The Lost Daughter.
Penelope Cruz in Parallel Mothers.
Nicole Kidman in Being the Riccardos.
And Kristen Stewart in Spencer. Just 2 more categories left.
Woo! This is so exciting. The first is for Achievement in Directing, and the nominees are Kenneth Branagh, Belfast.
Ryusuke Hamaguchi, Drive My Car.
Paul Thomas Anderson, Licorice Pizza.
Jane Campion, The Power of the Dog.
And Steven Spielberg, West Side Story.
And finally, the big one. Here are the nominees for Best Picture. Belfast, Laura Berwick, Kenneth Branagh, Becca Kovacic, and Tamar Thomas, producers.
Coda, Philippe Rousselet, Fabrice Giaffermi, and Patrick Waxberger, producers.
Don't Look Up, Adam McKay and Kevin Messick, producers.
Drive My Car, Teruhisa Yamamoto, producer.
Dune, Mary Parent, Denis Villeneuve, and Cale Boiter, producers.
King Richard, Tim White, Trevor White, and Will Smith, producers.
Licorice Pizza, Sarah Murphy, Adam Somner, and Paul Thomas Anderson, producers.
Nightmare Alley, Guillermo del Toro, J. Miles Dale, and Bradley Cooper, producers.
The Power of the Dog, Jane Campion, Tanya Segachian, Emil Sherman, Ian Canning, and Roger Frappier, producers.
And West Side Story, Steven Spielberg and Christy McCosco Krieger, producers. 10 great Best Picture nominees. Everybody, please make sure to watch the Oscars on March 27th on ABC and go to oscars.org to learn how you can vote to get your favorite movie and movie moment featured on this year's Oscar telecast.
It was so exciting to wake up with you, Tracy. I can't wait for Oscar night.
You're the best, Leslie. Oh, what a treat you are. And the best part, you're already dressed. Okay, we have got so much to talk about, so let's bring back in our experts. Mike Muse, Kelly Carter, Clayton Davis. You guys, where do we begin? Kelly, let's start with where we just ended, Best Picture, No Macbeth.
No Macbeth, which I'm bummed about, but excited that my boy got that nomination in Best Actor. But that said, I mean, a pretty competitive category and a lot of really great films. King Richard is up in there, and West Side Story by the great Steven Spielberg is up there too. So not too mad at what that category looks like.
There you go. Clayton, weigh in on Nightmare Alley and Drive My Car making it into the lineup.
Yeah, listen, I predicted 9 out of the 10 that ended up making it in the end. I feel really happy right now. No being the Riccardos, that was the big surprise. And Drive My Car making the lineup, 3-hour Japanese film, like got nominations, 4 nominations across the board. Had a really great day in a very small studio. And Power the Dog just utterly leading the way today. I didn't even get the final tally, maybe like 12 nominations or 11. It had a great day today.
Clayton, you're so excited. This is like the best adult game of bingo ever. All right, now, Mike, let's pick up on where Clayton left off talking about diversity, especially with Drive My Car making it in for Best Picture. Talking about diversity all around. I mean, we saw a lot. Like you literally said, Janae, we did it.
We did. Janae, we made history. We changed the Oscars. Because you and I were talking about incremental change.
Yeah.
I think everyone gets really excited to monitor what is diverse based upon the major categories, in particular acting. And that's all sometimes we think about, and directing too, but it really becomes acting comes to diversity. First of all, I want to say I'm so bummed that Macbeth didn't get in there. I just wanted to put that on the record. Mike's on the record. He's bummed about Macbeth. I'm excited for Don't Look Up. I'm rooting for that one.
Yes.
I love that movie. But also, too, let's talk about that. Executive producer, Will Smith. Black, right? Diversity above the line with the executive producer title. And then you look below the line. Yo, we are, sorry, I'm so excited. Let me calm down a little bit today. I got too excited. I'm like, we're at home in my living room having a thing. So we have America.
Summer of Soul.
With Kelly, Carla Farmer did the hair for Coming to America. We have Questlove with Best Documentary, right? We have Beyonce with Be Alive with the King Richard. So then we have, I mean, the best was a supporting actress category. We already talked about that one as
lead
well.
Actor,
But the lead actor, that's what you and I were talking about, where you have Denzel Washington, Will Smith, and then you have Javier Bardem with being the Riccardos. So the majority of that category are people of color. And so then you start to look below the line, above the line, and I really have to say that this Oscars is diverse. Is it 100%? No. But it talks about the incremental change we're talking about, and I think it had something to do with the largest voting that they've had for this year's of any Oscars in the history, with the addition of additional 35% increase. I really think we have to credit to the membership department of the Academy and how they've actively went out to recruit diverse members in each category, and how they actively went out to look at the studios, distributors, and talent agencies to talk about their talent on how to engage to make sure we be the change that we want to see.
Yes.
This is exciting.
It is. We are seeing a lot of that incremental change. And Kelly, I want to bring you in to talk about diversity and to talk about your girl Beyonce, because she got it, Kelly.
Listen, bow down to the queen. Beyonce, listen, don't you want to see Beyonce get up there on an Oscar stage and accept
and
a
especially
trophy?
after what many thought were a couple snubs in the past.
Absolutely. So look, I would love to see her perform. I think she probably will. That would be really exciting. But really, just getting that nomination is amazing. And I think this is a good thing for her to wake up to this morning. She's done so much over the years. We've had, she's a Grammy winner. She's a presence. She, stopped the world when she drops music. And now she is an Oscar nominee, and that's something she can add to her many long line of accolades, and that's awesome.
Yes, it absolutely is. Okay, let's talk about lead actress Clayton. Kristen Stewart, I see your face. You're so ready to talk about this.
Oh my God,
Kristen Stewart for Spencer.
Kristen Stewart, congratulations. By the way, most wide open race this year because Lady Gaga missed an Oscar nomination. She was the only actress to be nominated at every televised award show leading up to this moment. She's the only one that got nominated at BAFTA. There's no BAFTA nominees here at Oscar.
And you're laughing it off.
This is crazy. Like, we don't know what's going to happen now. I don't know who wins the Oscar. And I just spoke about this yesterday, that Gaga was vulnerable and people didn't believe me and didn't see that she was probably vulnerable. I think this was a really wide open race. And now I don't know who wins it in the end.
And Kelly, you weigh in on that. For lead actress, because this does look very wide open, where do you think this could go?
I mean, I honestly have no idea. I think that voters, early on at least, are probably really feeling Nicole Kidman. She's collected, of course, some wins for this role in the season so far, so I don't know why it's such a stretch to imagine that she would also win an Oscar for this role. But also, it was really great seeing Kristen Stewart in there because I know that people were bummed out that she didn't get her name called for other award shows before this one. So.
Yeah, so we will see. Mike, I want to bring you in on lead actor. Now, talk to me. We were talking about how that category now is majority diversity. Do you think that this could come essentially down to Will Smith versus Denzel?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it's definitely between Will Smith and Denzel. Denzel's performance in Macbeth was a masterclass in acting. It was a masterclass in method acting. It was a masterclass in taking you on this incredible emotional journey. What Denzel had to do in this role was both physical and also too emotional and also too having to be vulnerable. There's a lot of other people who got nominated that didn't have to stretch as much as they did. Now, with the exception of Benedict Cumberbatch, his role for the entire time, 2+ hours, was nothing but vulnerability. And so to keep that presence of vulnerability for 2+ hours is challenging. And so I literally think it's between those three, actually. With possibly we can see Benedict Cumberbatch sneaking in, but hands down, if Denzel does not walk away with that trophy, I am going to be upset.
You know, that's a really good point about Benedict Cumberbatch, and I read that because of how deep that acting had to be, that his method was to be in character the whole time on set, to the point that it actually irritated Jesse Plemons at some point. But let's talk about Power of the Dog, and that compared to which one? Dune. Because Clayton, you said that both of them were going to have a big morning, and they did. Break down how they're similar, how they differ in the kind of morning they've had.
Dune is really interesting because it got the exact number of nominations I predicted. It got 10, but it missed Best Director, which was huge because Dune, by the way, is the 6th film to ever be nominated in every single technical category. It got adapted screenplay. It got picture. I thought adapted screenplay was the one it was going to miss, and it missed director. So that's huge. But Power of the Dog, by traditional Oscar standards, has everything it needs right now to win Best Picture. It overperformed. It showed up in production design. It got film editing, sound, a double supporting actor nomination. This is a really good day for Netflix, and I think that they're going to be very dangerous in the second half of the season. They may have finally hit their Best Picture winner.
And that will be very interesting to see for a streaming service, especially. Kelly, I want to bring you in to talk about more on the diversity, but Ariana DeBose specifically and West Side Story. Talk about the importance of that nomination.
That nomination is so important for so many reasons. You know, you have a Afro-Latina woman who also is a queer woman, and I think she constantly is representing the communities, and I think that it would be so great to see her win. But also, if we go back a year ago, the thing that we were talking about was a lack of Latinx representation across the board at this award show. And the one thing that I know I was saying, I know that Clayton was saying, is if West Side Story came out this year, we would be having a different conversation. But also, we live in a world where we shouldn't really be waiting on one film to change the narrative for us with regards to representation. That said, I'm really happy to see Ariana in the mix, and I think we're going to see a lot more from her in the future because of this.
And really incredible that Steven Spielberg nominated for Best Director. He has been nominated in 6 different decades. That is insane to just wrap your mind around. So we will see how that shakes out. But let's talk about the diversity in that category with directors, especially on the heels of the year that Chloe Zhao had last year. Clayton, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, we have Hamaguchi, who directed Drive My Car. This is the second year in a row we've had Asian directors nominated, and it was for an international feature. Again, I can't stress this enough. A 3-hour Japanese film. It's very meditative, and it broke through very late. It's a very small studio, Janus Films, that handled it, and it's done very, very well in the precursors. But looking at this further, you have Steven Spielberg, who's a legend in his own right. You have Paul Thomas Anderson, who had 8 nominations going into today, and is now up to 11 career nominations now. You know, and Jane Campion is the first woman to ever be nominated a second time. She made history in 1993 when she became the second woman ever nominated in that category. She lost to Steven Spielberg for Schindler's List. So now it looks like it might be a little bit of a round 2, but I think Jane might be really dangerous this time around.
I think she could maybe edge that one out. And Mike, let's talk about Don't Look Up. You said that was one of your favorites. I really like that movie. Critics weren't such huge fans of it.
Which I don't even like the critics anymore because of that. Like, I was so angry at them for not giving Don't Look Up the love that it did. But to what Clayton was coming on from about directors, I think Adam McKay got snubbed for the fact of Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up was, to me, one of the best satirically made films I've seen in a very long time. It was very nuanced. So
Especially the topic that it took on.
Exactly, it was a topic. It was nuanced, and it was something for everyone, and it made everyone question everything. And to have that all-star cast, to keep the all-star cast intact, to keep the storyline intact, to keep the pacing of it intact, to make sure you don't go too heavy on one side, that's directing. And so I'm upset that he got snubbed, Janae. What's also too interesting, though, about diversity, when you look at, I talk about Will Smith as the executive producer, but then you think about the diversity of color on the screen. And there's always this narrative of that, people of color cannot carry films, where we're seeing films such as Macbeth, you're seeing Drive My Car, you're seeing King Richard, and you're starting to see West Side Story. These are films that have been driven by people of color. And then you look at the other categories. I've talked a lot about below the line, but if you look above the line, Penelope Cruz got in for Best Actress. That means we have a person of color in every major category, with the exception of Best Supporting Actor. That's the only category we don't have a person of color. And so this is actually the incremental change. We're never going to be at, well, hopefully we'll get to 100% change, right? But for the fact that we're seeing this type of incremental change, and especially Best Picture.
Right. And so look, we don't have that much more time, guys. So I want to circle around to everybody to get your predictions. Who wants to go first? Clayton, let's start with you. Give me your predictions.
Before a few minutes ago, I would have said Belfast, and now I think I have to predict Power of the Dog. I think Netflix is finally going to get their Best Picture winner this year with Power of the Dog. It has everything it needs.
What about for lead actor and actress?
Will Smith I think, is so locked up. By the way, second black man to ever be nominated for Best Picture and acting in the same year. First was Denzel for Fences. An actress, I'm going to roll the dice and say Kristen Stewart does it. I really don't know.
All right, Kelly, let's get Best Picture, actor, actress. Lead.
Yeah, best picture, I think West Side Story. Best actor, Will Smith. He wants that, and I think he's going to get it. And I think best actress, Nicole Kidman.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to be curious to see as far as being the Riccardos, because they cleaned up pretty well with the actor and actress nominations. Mike, go ahead, weigh in.
Rooting for Don't Look Up, but Power of the Dog is going to get it.
Yes.
Denzel Washington, he's going to walk home with that statue. Denzel, get your speech ready. And Nicole Kidman, like, shooing, just as Kelly said.
So you guys are thinking, I mean, for lead actress, it's tough, but you think it's Nicole Kidman.
Hands down.
That's what, all right. We're going to see, guys. We're going to see. We're going to be following this through. We will see how it all shakes out. Mike Muse, Kelly Carter, Clayton Davis, thank you all so much for joining us. And we should mention Kelly's new entertainment podcast, Close Up, debuts tomorrow, so be sure to check that out and watch this year's Oscars on Sunday, March 27th at 8/7 Central on ABC. Until then, I am Janae Norman. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search following the U.S. Marshal